Thank you. So we are going to dive in deep in this session. And you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be over everybody's heads. What that means is that we saw some of the analytical capabilities of Tableau earlier, and we saw even the kind of value that you could get out of Tableau. But we're going to take that to the next level and see what can we really get out of Tableau, and what kind of decisions is that going to allow us to make. How many of you here are new to Tableau and you've never even used it? All right. Well, don't worry. This isn't going to. When I say dive in deep, you'll still appreciate it. How many of you have been using Tableau for about a year? Okay, good. Yeah, so quite a few of you more than a year. Okay, yeah. So good distribution here of individuals, so that's great. All right, so what we're going to do is I've kept the same data set that we were working with. I haven't changed that at all. All I've done is clear out some of the dashboards and sheets that we had before, and so we're just going to start fresh with this data, and we're going to see how deep can we really go. All right, so the first thing that we might do is we might take a look at, not the date listed, but I've got a field here called the year built. Now I want to change this to discrete, because then when I bring this out to columns, I'm going to get headers. So everything from 1922 all the way out to maybe 2016. Really? We have a house built in 2017? Well, it's possible, new construction. It's not going to be done until 2017, but I may want to check this data set too. All right, we look at the number of listings. Okay, and this is looking okay, but it's a little bit hard to see the data. I can have to scroll back and forth to see everything. What I might want to do is take this year built field and group it up. Or in Tableau, we'll call that bins. So I can use the drop-down menus to go to create and say create bins. So I want just buckets of data, and I'm going to give it a size here of 10 years. So we're going to have buckets of 10 years, and you'll see that I've got this new year built field, and it's a bin. And if I take that, put that on columns instead, that's a little bit easier to deal with. So now I'm just looking at it by decade. So I've got houses built in the 1920s, 1930s, all the way up to the 2010s. And this is great. This is what I would normally have gotten in Tableau 9. And sometimes we call this a histogram. So it shows us the distribution of the data, and it looks fairly good. But data visualization purists would have a complaint about this histogram. Does anyone know what that complaint might be? Well, there really are no gaps between the dates, right? So why do we see gaps between these bars? In Tableau 10, I can take a bin field and other fields as well, but a bin especially, and I can change it to continuous. So I can have a continuous bin, and now I actually see what years those bars span. I see that that first one is 1920 to 1930, and then 1930 to 1940. And so I get this nicely sized bar graph. And in fact, as I resize it, maybe on a dashboard or maybe just by resizing the window, it sizes really nicely. So you'll see even if I get really small, those bars are still nice, and even large. You get too large and maybe that's too much, but I can put that on a dashboard and it would probably look really nice. Now the reason it's doing this in Tableau 10 is that there is a new sizing control. So if I click on the size shelf, this is what I see. I see a manual and a fixed size, and the fixed is here by default. This is new, and what this allows me to do is to actually give each bar a width in terms of the axis units. So here it's a bin, so I can say, well, each bar is just 5 years wide, and I get something like that, or I could say it's 10 years wide, which is the default, probably what it should be. And I can even align the bar, so I'm saying, well, it starts with the left, and it goes on to the right, and things will look pretty good, but I can change that alignment if I wanted to. This is what it looked like in Tableau 9. So Tableau 9 was the manual approach. It would have looked something like that, or maybe bump that size up, and I get something like that. Not terrible, but notice what happens as I resize those bars, so they get kind of overlapping and don't look so great. So when I go to put this on a dashboard for my boss's phone, he's going to complain that it looks really blocky. And so now I'm going to be happy that Tableau 9 has this new fixed size feature, and things are going to look nice no matter what size it is. And it gives a better representation of the data, allowing me to see exactly what those bars are spanning. And you'll notice this with dates. So we had the date listed. If I bring that up here instead, get rid of the year built, and maybe look at this by month, and change it to a bar chart. You'll notice I have the same sizing control, and in fact it's going to let me give it a width in days. So right now it's set to 10 days, that's what we had it set on, but I can tell it 30 days. I could even clear it out and just let it be automatic, which is going to fill in the whole month. So you'll have all kinds of different sizing abilities. Most of the time you won't even have to worry about it. You'll just allow it to go with its automatic sizing, but it's nice to know that that's there. And I'm going to undo a couple of times and just go back to the point that we had it with the year built. And we'll rename this sheet, When Was It Built? And I'll move on. So we go to another sheet. And another thing that I might want to do is map the data. And we saw before I could map it by zip code, so we'll start with that. So I'll map the data again by zip code and maybe change it to a filled map just so we can see it. And we get something like that. And I showed you before how we could create our own ad hoc custom territories. So I can select zip codes, I can drag and select, I can lasso select. In fact, I can even radial select. So there's this new feature to Tableau 9 was this radial select. Here in Tableau 10, notice that as I select, I'm getting the measurement. So it shows me what the radius or the yes, it shows me the radius. It shows me the radius in miles, and I can use that to select. But some people in the world don't use miles. Some people use the metric system, which I guess is great. But Tableau 10 allows you to have the options. So if I go to Map Options, I can say what units do I want to show that radius in. I can show it in metric or US units, no problem. So metric, now I'm looking at it in kilometers or meters if I get down small enough. So that's great to know that that's there. But sometimes you're going to have a lot of little counties or zip codes. You might have hundreds that make up your custom territories. How many of you want to spend your time tediously selecting county by county by county by county just to get your data into your custom territories? No one. Not a surprise. The great thing is if your data has it, so here I've got a sales region field, drop that on color just to take a look. Sometimes you have that already in your data. You already know what your custom territories are. Now it's great, I can put the sales region on there, get the color, but if I take the zip code away, I get nothing because Tableau doesn't know that sales region is a geographic field. So I undo and we go back and look at it. So zip code has to be there, at least right now. But the nice thing is that I don't have to go through and create an ad hoc territory for each thing. What I can do is take that sales region field, use the drop down, and tell it, let's assign a geographic role. So before, I could always do this with any field. I could tell Tableau that this was a state or a city or a zip code or some sort of statistical area. But in Tableau 10, I have an additional feature here, create from, and it will show me all of my existing geographic fields, in this case zip code, and this tells Tableau that sales region has a geographic relationship with zip code. I select that, and now Tableau builds out this hierarchy, and it says, okay, zip codes roll up to a sales region. Sales region gets a geographic icon because now Tableau knows it's geographic. And now when I take zip code away, now Tableau knows what those custom territories are just based on the fact that I created that relationship and told Tableau what that field really represents. So that's a great thing that you can do in Tableau when you have your custom territories in the data. It saves a lot of time, makes it really easy. Sometimes though, I don't want to look at things by zip code or by county or even by state or by anything else. Sometimes what I want to do is I actually want to plot the individual addresses. Now, Tableau doesn't have that built in. The installation would be huge if they tried to include every address in the built-in geographic database. But I can get that data. So I can use some sort of a geocoding application to find the latitude and longitude based on address, and I can get that data. The only problem is sometimes when I get that data, it's not in a format that's very easy to use. So I've got this data in SQL Server, and maybe I have some sort of a process that goes out there and geocodes my data, but what it does is it dumps all of that as files in a certain directory. And then I think, okay, I've got to have some sort of a third-party application or some sort of custom process that pulls that back into SQL Server and joins it all together. Not anymore. Now, with Tableau, I have cross-database joins. So I'm going to edit my data source. I've got the SQL Server data source set up already. But what I'm going to do is, over here on the left, you'll notice there are connections listed out. Right now I've just got one connection. It's to SQL Server, and I'm seeing all the tables and stored procedures and views that are in this database. What I'm going to do is add a connection. So I click Add. And notice that I can add all kinds of connections. There are just a few that I can't. So there are a few cloud-based data source, Google Analytics, and Tableau Server. But most of the connections that I would usually use are there. And in fact, I can add a text file. So I'm going to add a text file. And the great thing is that I actually have my geocoded data here as a text file. The only issue here is that I've actually got it split up into 4 different files because the process that I use, maybe it does it monthly, or maybe it does it in batches. Well, we'll start with what we can. So I'm going to choose my first geocoding file. It adds in a connection, and there's only one table for a text file, so it automatically brought that in, and it automatically joined that. Now notice the color coding. So my SQL Server connection is color-coded blue. I see that on the table here. I also see all the fields marked with blue that came from SQL Server. And then my text file is color-coded orange, and so the table is orange over here, and the fields that came from that table are orange here. And I can join. Tableau recognized the join on this ID field, but I could change that to join on another field if I knew that I wanted to do that. But this is looking pretty good, except that I had about 400 some odd addresses, and I'm only seeing 99 rows come through right now. And that is because the geocoding file only contained 99 records. So I could think, well, maybe a left join. Now I see my 421 rows that I wanted, but the problem is that I only have latitude and longitude for the 99 matches. So if I scroll down here, once we get past 99, everything's null. So that's not exactly what I want either. I'll go back to the inner join. Now it's only got the ones that have matches. What I can do in Tableau is take all of the files in that directory and union them together. So I could do this in 9.3, in fact, but I could take the file and drag and when I get close enough, it says drop it here to create a union. So if I drop my geocoding 2, now I've got 199 rows, and I can take geocoding 3 and union that in. And notice, this is getting kind of complex. I've got a union, and I've got that joined to something else. This is across data sources, so one SQL server, one is a union of text files. This is great. I could bring in my geocoding 4, and we'd have all the files that I wanted, and they'd be all joined together. The only problem is that sometimes my process is doing a monthly data dump, or a weekly or a daily data dump into a directory, so I'm going to get a new file every day, or every week, or every month. And then I'm going to have to come back to Tableau and edit the connection and bring the new file in like this, except in Tableau 10, I don't. In Tableau 10, I can use the little drop down here and edit the union. And yes, I can manually add and remove files, but I can also specify them by wildcard. So if I click over here on the wildcard tab, now I can say, let's include all the text files in this directory, or I can specify a wildcard match. So if I want to say, you know what, there's lots of text files in this directory, it's only the ones that start with GEO, and then we'll give it a star. So we'll include only those files. I can include subfolders, I can include the parent folder. If I were unioning together Excel files, it's going to even give me an additional option for wildcard matches on the sheets in the Excel file. So I can union together sheets within Excel files, and I can union together Excel files together. And it also works with Google Sheets. So all kinds of fun things that you can do with union. So I'll say, okay, here, now I'm back to my 421 addresses. This is exactly what I want. And take a look at this connection. I've got SQL Server, I've got text files joined together. It's a live connection. Tableau is querying this live. Now I can extract it if I want to, and I may have reason to do that, but these cross-database joins work even as live connections. So now, I'm going to go back to my sheet 2. Maybe we'll even start a new sheet. Because what I've got now is I've got each one of my my different tables there for my connection. So I've got my geocoding tables, I've got my listings, and I'll notice that I've got a few things here that I didn't have before. So I've got latitude and longitude, which came from my text files. Now Tableau didn't automatically recognize those as geographic fields, but that's not a problem because I can set those. So on the drop-down menu, use geographic role. This one is latitude. That one is longitude. And now I've got those set. I've also got, you'll notice, a path field here. So this is from the union. So if I take a look at that, that just tells me the path of the individual file that the data came from. So then I can see, you know, how many listings came from the join on each file. I can check my data, just make sure that that's what I expect. And that looks pretty good. Also, if this was like a monthly data dump file and the file name has the month in it, then you could create a calculated field to actually get the date if your data didn't have the date in it, and the only place you could get it was from the file name. So that's kind of nice to know, but I'm going to clear that out because now what I want to do is I want to use my new latitude and longitude fields, and these are specifically down to the address level. So with no addresses, we're just sort of centered there on Dallas, but if I bring the individual address in, now I can see each individual location of the address. And I can do some really fun things with that, like maybe size by price. So now I can see kind of where the more or less expensive houses are in the market. And then we'll do some other fun things as well. But for now, let's just rename this. We'll again call it where. And now, let's take a look at something else. And that is, let's go back to the idea of clustering. We'll come back to the map in a moment, but let's look at clustering one more time. And again, I can do clustering on all kinds of visualizations. We'll take a look at that as well. But I like to do it on a scatter plot just because initially that helps me kind of see what Tableau is doing, especially since a scatter plot allows me to see at least 2 variables at a time, and clustering can take 2 variables or more, as we'll see in a moment. So we'll build our scatter plot, so address and price and size. Let's filter out those types again. So we'll just look at just the ones that are for sale. And we'll apply that across the entire data source. Alright, so here are all of my individual houses according to how big they are and how pricey they are. And this is the scatter of those different properties. And we'll go back to the idea of clustering. So here on the Analytics tab, just like we did before, I'll take the cluster here under Model, drag that and drop that into the view, and I get the automatic clustering that Tableau does. Now you'll notice that sometimes, depending on the data, Tableau will decide a different number of clusters. It's using a k-means clustering, so it's just using a standard k-means clustering. I've been told that when Tableau ships, they will include documentation and sources so that you can read up on that and understand exactly the model that it's using. So it's not some sort of black box that won't be defined. You'll be able to understand what it's doing. But this gives us a lot of options and capabilities to understand our data even better than we could with just a simple scatter plot, and even other insights than we could get than just with simple trend models. So with clustering, what I can do is I can begin to find things that are related. So I can find related addresses. Here, I'm finding them as they are related to each other by price and by size. And so Tableau has found 2 different clusters, 2 different groupings of these addresses. Looks like maybe one of those is sort of the bigger and more expensive homes, and one of those are maybe some of the smaller and less expensive homes. I can change the number of clusters. So Tableau automatically figures out what might be a good number of clusters, but I can say, let's look at 3 clusters, or I can look at 4 clusters. Or I might just go back to the automatic, let's take out 4, so clear it out and we're back to the automatic. You can explore your data in this way. You can kind of see where you might find relationships, but then it gets really powerful in the sense that I can change the variables. So for example, if I take one out, you'll kind of see how clustering is working. So let's take out size. And now it is only clustering based on price. And you'll see it's giving us just sort of a straight line division. And it's found 4 different clusterings based on just price. And if I undo, I could do the same thing, take out size, and we would get clustering, take out price, and we would get clustering the other way. So here it's actually found up to 7 different clusters based on size. And you can see these are more vertical. Right, on the scatter plot. Here's where it gets really exciting though. So I'm going to undo, and I've got price, I've got size, and I'm saying how do these relate to each other? But I know that there are other variables that might relate a house or related houses together. So if I go back to my data tab here, one thing that I might think is that sometimes the number of bedrooms can make a big difference in terms of how a house sells. So if I take that number of bedrooms, I can drag and drop that into the variables as well. And now, look what I've got. I've got some overlap. And this is kind of interesting. In fact, I'm going to bring bedrooms into the tooltip so that we can kind of see what's going on. But if I look at these orange ones, this cluster 2, I can see these are sort of 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom houses, maybe even some 4 bedrooms in there. If I look at the blue ones, I see these are sort of consistently 3s and 4s, maybe a few 2s, but maybe they have a few more bedrooms. And now I start to see the overlap. So I see there are some blue houses down here. Here's a house with 4 bedrooms that is kind of a little bit smaller, quite a bit less expensive than most of the rest of the blues, but Tableau has allowed me to see that that one is more related to some of these others. And that kind of gives me an interesting insight. Maybe that's a house that I might want to look at because it's more related to some of the more expensive ones, but it's a little bit better price. Same thing here with maybe some of the others. Here's another 4-bedroom house. And then some of these orange ones. Here's one that's just 1 bedroom and it's kind of up here towards the blues. And here's another one with just 2 bedrooms and it's kind of in the blue section as well. So clustering allows me to say, how do the different variables relate the data together? And then it gets even more exciting because I can take these clusters and now I've got, let's simplify it. Let's go back to just price and size. So I'll take number of bedrooms off. And we'll take clusters and we'll take these clusters here and drag it to the data side, so to the data pane. And when I do that, what it's going to do is it creates a group based on those clusters. So here I have these 2 clusters and it's going to call it address clusters. I could rename it if I wanted to. But now what I have is I have a group that I can reuse across different visualization types. So, for example, if I go back to my map, I can take this group based on the clusters that I defined in another visualization and bring that in on color. And now I can start to see, okay, here are some of my bigger, more expensive houses. Here are some of my smaller, less expensive houses. And now I've taken those groupings and now I can start to see, is there a geographic distribution? And in fact, I can find certain neighborhoods that maybe are made up of more of one cluster type than others. So maybe it would be nice to find one of these smaller, less expensive houses in a nicer, bigger neighborhood. It might be a great investment property right there. I don't know. But it would be interesting to look at and to see. Or maybe there's a blue cluster out here kind of in an orange neighborhood. So all kinds of analysis that you can do with your data based on clustering. And then I can come back here to my scatter plot and even bring that clusters field back out here to the color just to make sure that we're reusing it. And then it's usable on a dashboard. So then I can take this cluster and we could even use it on a dashboard maybe to highlight across multiple different visualizations. We'll see kind of how that could work in a little bit. But speaking of highlighting, let's go back here. And one of the new features of Tableau 10 is the data highlighter. So we've always had the ability to filter things, right? So if I took number of bedrooms, for example, and brought that in the filters, I could say, let's look at just 3-bedroom homes, and I filter out everything else. The problem with filtering is that I could lose some of the context. So it's great that I can see my 3-bedroom homes, but what if I wanted to see the 3-bedroom homes in relationship to all the other homes? So instead, what I could do is take bedrooms, bring it out to detail, use the drop down and say, let's create a new highlighter. So show highlighter, right under show filter. And now I get this new highlighter control where I can highlight different properties. So here are my 3-bedroom houses, but I can see those in relation to all the houses. It's not filtering them out. And it's not trying to recenter the map on just those properties either. And this works on all kinds of fields. So if I wanted to see a filter based on the year it was, or a highlighter based on the year it was built, I could do that. I could do all kinds of things with a highlighter. One of the things that I might want to do with a highlighter is highlight based on the property description. Now I don't have the property description, at least not in this data set as it exists now. In fact, my property descriptions are actually located on my Google Drive in a Google spreadsheet. But the great thing is that I can edit my data source and bring that straight in as well. So I'm going to add another connection. And Google Sheets shows up as a new data source for Tableau 10. It's going to ask me to log in and allow Tableau to use my Google stuff. I say allow, and it brings up this nice dialog box that allows me to take a look at my Google Sheets that I have access to, and I can kind of look at those and get a preview, see when I last looked at it. Well, and if you have a URL that someone shared with you for a public Google Sheet, you can use that as well. So I can paste in a URL here, and we'd be good to go. Right now, what I want is this real estate descriptions, and we'll say connect. Tableau brings that in. The sheet was just named Sheet 1. Notice that we are still using a live connection. So Tableau allows a live connection to Google Sheets. And this one's a whole lot more complex than just that, because we have SQL Server joined to a union of text files joined to a Google Sheet. And it is querying all of this live. It is allowing me to see everything that I want to. I still have my 421 rows because we're joined on ID, which is great. And then if I scroll over here, I'll see what came from Google, and I have some descriptions. So all kinds of things like you'd read in the advertisements for real estate. And let's take a look at how we might use that. So we'll go back to our map and see kind of where things are. And now I've got my two tables that I had before. I've got this new Sheet 1. I might want to rename that just so I know what it is. But here's the description field. So I bring that out. And I can put that on tooltip, and so things, it tells me where it is, what's going on. It tells me it's stunning or beautiful or whatever real estate agents like to say. Any real estate agents here? Good. I can say whatever I want then. No, I love real estate agents. All right, so I take this address description and I show the highlighter. And I showed you how I could select an individual item, right? But that's not very exciting. The great thing is type in. So what if I wanted to look at all the houses that have pool in the description? So there are all the houses that might have a pool. Here are all the houses that might have a patio. What about a fireplace? And so I can start to see what's going on with my data, and I can highlight the marks that I'm interested in, but still have the other marks there just for reference and just to see what's going on. So the highlighter is an incredible capability of Tableau as well. All right, and I can do that on all kinds of visualizations. Here's the highlighter based on my scatter plot. So bring in that description, say show highlighter, and here are all the houses that have a pool highlighted for me. And so now I can find maybe a really cheap one with a pool. That would be great. And we'll rename this sheet as our size and price correlation. And finally, I think I'm ready to maybe build out another dashboard as well. So I come to the dashboard and I'm ready to build it out. I'm ready to start to see what I've got and put it all together. So I've got some sheets that I'll bring in, when it was built, where it's located, the price and the size. And then notice I've got my highlighters. So I've got my description highlighter here, so it works on the dashboard as well. So I can take a look at what's going on here. In fact, it's only working on one sheet because when I put it on the tooltip, it came in as an attribute. No problem. We'll change it to dimension. Doesn't like that. We'll try again. Put description out there. Now let's try the highlighter again. And notice it works even on the dashboard, so I can see all the houses that have a pool in whatever view I've included that description field in. So the highlighter is great, the clustering is great. Since I'm using a group for the cluster, I can give these maybe better names. So I can edit the alias just like I did on the group before, but these are maybe my high price and size houses and these are my lower price and size houses. And so I can give those nice nice names that will help me understand what's going on. And now I've got sort of the start of a dashboard here. I could give it some interactivity to say, okay, let's filter on when it was built. Maybe 1980s. There's my 1980s homes. There's my 1950s homes, 1920s homes. So that's kind of interesting. I can kind of see how the city expanded out. And it gives me some ability to drill into the data as well. And now I'm ready to build this out for different users. So I'm going to start by saying, well, if a person has a desktop, they're going to be able to see some things pretty well. But I'm going to set the size here. We're just going to make this an automatic fit size. So I'm going to say instead of a fixed size, let's just let it stretch out as big as it wants to, no matter what size the window is. We'll let it stretch out, and that'll be great. And now I'm going to take a look at my device preview to see how that works with different devices. So on a tablet, that looks pretty good. Notice how it's stretching to fit into the tablet. Things are working pretty well. I can change the orientation to see, okay, that still looks okay, but maybe it's a little bit squished there. So let's see what would happen if I took this legend here and maybe took my highlighter and put it here. That might help a little bit on that tablet, and if I switch it back here, that's not too bad either. So I can start to customize it, and I'm going to say let's add that as a tablet layout. I get the same options that we saw before in terms of fitting it to everything, which it's already doing with the automatic fit, or I could just fit it to the width of the tablet and then specify a height so that you can swipe your finger and see the rest of it. For the tablet, I think we'll just let it fit everything. And notice that this is still using the default layout. I haven't changed anything really. I haven't removed any views or removed anything else. So it's still set to the default. But as soon as I do something like take out a legend, now it's switched to a custom layout. So now the tablet layout is its own special layout. And I can go back to the default and see that this was my default with the legend, but if I switch to the tablet, I see the legend is gone. If I switch it back to default, the legend comes back, and I can go on. So that looks pretty good for a tablet. I can double check different types of tablets. So maybe Google Nexus 7 is a little bit different resolution, but it still looks pretty good, still fitting pretty well. I could say, okay, how about an Asus Nexus 7? It's the same thing. Samsung Galaxy Tab is bigger, and I can check to see what it would look like on the Tableau mobile app. So the Tableau mobile app maybe adds a toolbar and resizes things a little bit differently. So I can just double check to see would it look good there, and so far so good. So my tablet's looking pretty good, and looks pretty good either way I go. Either portrait or landscape is looking fairly good. So I go on and I say, let's design for another device. Let's design for the phone. Okay, now the phone here, when it tries to fit that into the phone, that's a little bit scrunched. That's not working quite as well. This is just the generic phone. I can check different models of iPhones, different Samsung Galaxy phones, Nexus phones, Nokia phones. And that's great because now I can check all the different devices that I might be designing for. And I can also go to a custom layout. So instead of designing for the default, now I can say, you know what, on a phone, we need to see the legend. That's important to know what those are, but the highlighter will take that out. That's not as important at this point. And the year build, maybe we'll sort of squeeze that up there a little bit more. And in fact, between these two views, that's really scrunched up. So I'm going to, on my layout, or on my size, I'm going to say, let's add this phone layout and change this so that we're just fitting it to the width of the phone, but we're going to give it a little bit of height so that you can scroll down, and that's going to let us do some things like this. Take that, add that color legend, put it there, take these views and put them on top of each other so that we can fit them a little bit more nicely, maybe even resize the views a little bit. And now I've got something that works pretty well, and I might take the phone and say, well, what happens if it's landscape? Well, that's not too bad either. I can still sort of swipe and scroll down through each view, so that will work fairly well too. I might put some instructions on the dashboard to tell the user what orientation is best, or that sort of thing. But I've got a lot of flexibility here in terms of building out the dashboard the way that I want it. And I have each one of these as a different type of device. So here's desktop. I can add a desktop layout, and that's how it's going to look on the desktop. Some people have a portrait monitor, so that would be interesting. But usually it's going to look something like that. And here on desktop, I might say, you know what, let's either fit it to everything, or let's specify a width and a height here, and so I can give it that kind of a layout as well. So that is Tableau 10, and that gets to be a little bit more in terms of some of the capabilities, in terms of being able to join different data sources together, in terms of being able to dive deep into building for different devices. So that is a deep dive into Tableau 10.